When 2020 first started out and I immediately started seeing memes about how horrible it was going to be, I honestly thought people were just being way too pessimistic. Because, after all, it was just barely into January at the time. I thought, it wasn't enough time to truly get a grasp on how good or bad the year was going to be. But then, here we are in March. The entire nation's shut down due to plague. And then we have people selling toilet paper, facial wipes, hand sanitizer, basically just hygiene products in Walmart parking lots at premium prices because other people are too busy hoarding it to do anything beneficial with it. And that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight. Just the whole hoarding issue. And I'm sure we all know it's wrong, except for the hoarders. But there's always somebody out there who just doesn't get it. So let's go over that, shall we? Hey, what's going on, geeks? Maxusthebeast is here, and welcome back to another video. Now today we are talking about the whole hoarding toilet paper crisis, or just any kind of hygiene product. You name it, that if it's anything anybody needs, it's gone. Basic food items, toilet paper obviously, then hygiene products, facial wipes, hand sanitizer, soap, shampoo even. So firstly, what's going on? In these type of videos I usually like to provide a bit of context. So, in case you've been living under a rock, the coronavirus has seriously hampered American commerce in really any sort of activity. Now the statement is that groups are limited to 10 people or less for public gatherings, just to try to prevent the spread of disease. And there's a lot of people who are having issues with that. I'm going to talk about the whole corona situation again some point, but that's another video for another time. Today we're just talking about hoarding. And so, because of this whole epidemic, I guess technically pandemic at this point, people are being quarantined. Either if they're actually ill, they're being, of course, forcibly quarantined. People who have supposedly come into contact with corona are self-quarantining themselves. So, in case they do come down with symptoms, they will be away from the general populace. So, when they start showing symptoms, they don't expose anybody else. And then there's just the influx of schools shutting down, both grade level and college level. Workplaces shutting down. Stores, restaurants, movie theaters. Really any major public arena or public space is being shut down because they don't want anybody else getting sick. Which is completely understandable. I'm not sitting here trying to knock this as something stupid because I understand the reason behind it. A disease needs a host to survive, and by cutting off potential hosts and trying to cut down on spread, we can prevent other people from getting sick. Because while the big threat is people, retirement age, the baby boomer generation's at risk. Really anybody over the age of 50 or so is at risk. But on top of that, it's not just reserved for old people, right? Young people can get it, but the scary thing about young people getting it is that symptoms sometimes don't show up. So you could have it and not even know it. And with most illnesses, the incubation period is when that individual is most contagious anyway. So just add on top of that, somebody, beyond the incubation period, they don't even know they're sick at this point because, again, they went through the incubation period and then nothing's happened. They haven't gotten ill, no symptoms are showing, so they think they're fine. But they're not. They then go out in public and go on their merry way. But at that point, it's too late. Because they've already spread the illness to multiple other people without even knowing it. That's the real threat of younger people getting it. And on top of that, there's also the rising amount of people with chronic illness in this country. And Corona definitely damages those who have any form of chronic illness, be it celiac or diabetes, or honestly one that we keep being told about by health officials to watch out for or to really pay attention to would be obesity. While technically not really a disease per se, it's definitely a chronic condition that leaves the immune system a bit weakened, which coronavirus will thrive on. So again, that's the reason behind the quarantine. But again, people are treating this like the end of the world, right? I understand the importance of quarantine and the importance of social distancing, so we will not expose anybody else to this disease, especially to those who are older or suffering from chronic illness. I understand that. But at the same time, we also have to understand we shouldn't panic over this, right? Unless you are in that selective demographic of someone with a chronic illness or condition or are an elder, don't panic. Again, stay out of public arenas, and if you feel sick, regardless if it's corona or flu or pneumonia or whatever else, stay home. Don't risk getting anybody else ill, regardless if it's corona or anything else. Because honestly, that's the last thing we need right now, is an outbreak of something else. That would be horrible. But again, don't panic over it. The corona is bad, yes. And if you actually show signs of symptoms, it's like what I've been reading. It's just a worse flu with a incredibly high infectivity rate, and symptoms are longer lasting and slightly worse. However, unless everybody in one day suddenly comes down with a chronic illness, I highly doubt that the coronavirus by itself will be the death of this country. And really, the whole reason behind the quarantine is to prevent the death toll from getting as high as Italy's has, or China. So again, it can be fatal if untreated and if the proper precautions aren't taken. As well as, again, the whole target demographic thing. But I keep saying this, but don't panic over it. It's a worse flu. And I'm not saying that to try to like shrug it off or anything. It's bad, yes, but it's no smallpox. It's no AIDS. It's no SARS. So it's bad, but more than likely it isn't going to be fatal in most cases. However, this leads me into my next little conversation here. There are a plethora of people who I have my issues with the deniers, and I'll talk about that in the next video I do covering this corona topic. But there are those who are having panic attacks over this and treating this like it's Armageddon. Again, this is definitely doing some harm to the country, because a lot of businesses are closing down, the stock market's a nightmare, people's retirement plans are going out the window. It's definitely harmful to the country, yes. But again, it's not Armageddon, but people are treating it like it is. And it's almost like, you know, back in the 50s and 60s when the threat of nuclear war was ever present. So all these fallout shelters were built. You know, and people would buy stores out of beans and canned goods and things like that to be prepared for the apocalypse. Of course, that apocalypse never came in the form that they were expecting. But it's sort of like that's happening again because, you know, history repeats itself. They're treating the coronavirus like it's nuclear war, sort of. Yet instead of canned food, it's mostly hygiene products. Or just general health products. Skincare and that sort of thing. Toilet paper. I've already been through the list. And people are buying this stuff out in bulk. Just like an inhumane amount of toilet paper. Again, I get that this thing's more than likely going to go on for months. I mean, if you look at the Black Death outbreak, it lasted for like the first initial one lasted for like 3 years. So again, yes, it may last a decent amount of time, but the pictures I've seen of people like with shopping carts with toilet paper rolls stacked on top of toilet paper rolls, there is no human way possible you can use all of that. An entire community could use that. But no, one individual has bought the entire stock of toilet paper that, again, could supply an entire community. Which is horrible. You know, that's horrible in and of itself. It's just people buying out what other people will need, right? But then, you know, it's true that crisis brings out the best and worst in people. Sometimes you have really heartwarming moments where the community truly comes together and grows and becomes stronger as a result. I mean, as horrible as it was, after 9/11 happened, you know, communities got closer, trying to protect each other and keep each other safe. It was, at that point, less of the individual and focusing more on everybody else. Focusing on your neighbors, your friends, your family, or even the person you never even met. The focus was on others rather than self and greed. However, with this, you know, it might be a while before we start seeing that sort of camaraderie. Not saying that there aren't those who are truly altruistic throughout this, because there are plenty of people doing charity streams online, actually contributing to charity physically, and just doing what they can in person to help out. A lot of people buying food and picking up prescriptions and things for elderly people who shouldn't be out and about and exposing themselves to illness. There are people in New York right now, like street performers, singing goodwill songs to try to boost the city's morale, because New York currently is one of the worst areas being hit currently, alongside Washington State. So there's definitely a lot of good happening, but going back to the hoarders, you know, there's the people who are hoarding it just for themselves and getting all this stuff that, again, no one's going to be able to use. But then there's the people who have reached an all-new low, which is the side I was talking about earlier, how this kind of conflict brings out the best and worst in people. The worst is where we see people going out into public parking lots like Walmart or Target or Food Lion or anywhere else, just going to parking lots, opening up their trunk, and then marketing off toilet paper and other goods. I've seen so many pictures of people taking pictures of others standing out in parking lots with tables and things set up with stacks of toilet paper, hand sanitizer, even in some cases food, and then selling them for premium prices because they bought out the entire store. And people are so desperate for these basic necessities that, of course, they're going to pay the price for them because they need them. There's no toilet paper available anywhere. But these selfish individuals are selling the toilet paper. And where there is supply comes demand, regardless of if this supplier is legitimate. It's horrible. And it's, again, truly a low of a person's response, or of the community's response to this outbreak. And again, I'm not saying this as in I believe that everybody out there is behaving this way. Of course not. I know they're not. It's just this abhorrent minority that is causing a lot of problems. And just truly showing how low people can stoop. There's someone, you know, like with facial wipes, some brands will sell their facial wipes in sort of like bundles of 3 or 4 packages. I saw somebody selling, not the whole bundle, but just individual packages for $5 a pop. When usually it's around that price for a bundle of like 3. That's horrible. It's literally robbery. There was another case where somebody and his brother bought out an entire store, bought out several stores worth of hand sanitizer, and then went on Amazon and tried to pawn it off. But Amazon realized what was going on, thankfully, and shut the whole business down. So now these two brothers are just left with 1 billion things of hand sanitizer. So they're either going to have to do the scummy in-person merchant thing, or somehow use it all, or be decent people and recover from this by actually giving it out to people who could use it. Will that happen? I doubt it, but again, I'll keep tabs on that whole situation, and maybe in my next coronavirus video, bring it up again. But just general advice here. Again, this is not the end of the world. Don't buy what you don't need or what you will never use. Don't buy an entire store out of toilet paper or whatever because it's supply demand. No, don't do that. We shouldn't be treating this like a battle royale or whatever. Just treat others with respect, even if they don't, even if they haven't shown other people respect. Okay, that sounded weird. Cut. What I'm trying to say is to respect others and to put your local community first, rather than just your basic needs. Buy only what you need. Don't hoard. And if by any chance you are a hoarder, hey, there's always chance for redemption. Don't sell the stuff through like a freaking market. Don't do that. That's horrible. But instead, why don't you just give some stuff out for free? Even though, you know, major gatherings are ill-advised at this point, why don't you just walk around and just leave stuff on people's doorsteps? Or put up a sign saying free toilet paper, or free Purell, or heck, even something like free water bottles. Just do what you can and give what you can. Give back to those around you, and you'll see that this outbreak, at least for your community, might get a little better, or at least a bit more bearable. But again, that's just my thoughts on the whole topic. What do you think? Do you think hoarding like it's the nuclear apocalypse is somehow justified? If so, I'd be interested in seeing your point of view. Do you agree? Are you experiencing this? Is in your neighborhood, are all the stores sold out of whatever? Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. But again, guys, I hope you've taken some away from this video. And as always, Maxusthebeast is out.